Welcome everybody to the Everything True Cinema podcast. This is podcast number 2, and we're pretty excited about it because we've got some exciting news that's developed since the last time we spoke to you. That being that we have finally been able to secure the rights to a web series, or a series rather, that we shot a few years ago called Burn. And the reason why that's significant for us is because we have some of our favorite actors attached to the project, that being Lance Henriksen of Alien and Predator and Terminator and the series Millennium. Also Raymond J. Barry, who, if you may not know his name, but he's been in unbelievable amounts of shows and movies too. So wonderful actors. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this, we had shot this thing a few years ago, and we had lost the control of it for a while because of a scenario, and I will call this a cautionary tale. We were financed by a group, and they gave us the money to make the series, and then they disappeared. And because at the time they were partners with us, our hands were tied and we were kind of frozen. There really wasn't anything we could do with it. So now, after all these years, we finally got it back, and we're excited because we get to start releasing it. And it's a wonderful show. It's a very, very kick-ass show. It's about a family of smugglers in the Midwest who have been using Interstate 8035 to mule their drugs, and how when the father of the family passes away, the kids are all of a sudden in charge of the operation and really don't know what to do. So the reason why I want to bring this up is not only are we going to tell you about how you're going to get to watch it, we want to tell you a little bit about some behind the scenes stuff and experiences we had while making it, but I also want people to know about the situation that we went through to get to this point. Because I think that if you interviewed maybe 1,000 filmmakers, I bet you 95% of them would tell you that they've never had somebody come through and say, hey, we want to finance your project. We want to help you make this movie or this show. And then when it's done, they completely disappear. And as you know, there's contracts involved and, things like that. But we ended up finding out that the company that financed the project never set up the LLC that the film or Burn was attached to, which is freaking crazy. So literally, this project has been in limbo for years. So, this is, if you guys are filmmakers or film appreciators, whatever, you understand how wonderful it is to have somebody like Lance Henriksen in your movie who has been making stuff for 50 years. Pumpkinhead and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He's worked with every major director that's ever lived. And, for in that time frame. And the guy's getting old. And he's still a very brilliant actor, but, he's not going to be around forever. And I think we have to be able to appreciate how great it is to have his work and be able to see it. And it's been a shame. But now we're grateful, I certainly am, to be able to share this series with you. And you guys are going to get to be able to watch it for free. So I'm here because I want to spread the word. I want to talk about it. I want to introduce my co-hosts today. We've got Sean here. We've got Aaron, and my name is Thor. And I'm just going to, I think for a few minutes, we're going to talk about the experience of making it and talking about watching it again for the first time in a very long time. So, why don't we just start there? Sean, why don't I give the mic to you and you talk to me for a little bit and tell us about this.
Oh, wow. I'll tell you, it brought back a lot of memories. That was, 2017? I think.
It might have been 2016 or 2017.
When we filmed it, I think if I remember, Connor had just graduated. So because there was one scene that I didn't get help in, and that's because I was at my son's graduation party that day. Yeah. And I get there and they're like, "Where's Thor?" we're filming.
Yeah.
We were filming. But anyway, yeah, it just brought back so many memories. I mean, it was fun. I mean, every single scene I remembered. Even the one I wasn't at, I knew where it was. I knew everything about it.
Right.
And it was fun to remember hanging out with Lance, and because he was great. Like that whole scene where he's on the phone and it was me on the other end that he was pretending to talk to.
Right.
He just kept coming up with, I'm gonna peel the skin off your body, and he just kept saying, trying to think of all these horrible things to say, and I'm over there trying not to laugh. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I think the thing is that this was a passion project because for a long time I was trying to get this thing made. I knew it was going to be great, but it was going to take some money to do it.
It was a big project, dude.
And we had a couple of Snoop Dogg was attached to this for a little bit, and then that fell through. And then I was going out to LA over and over again and showing a fake trailer that I made for it. I literally made a trailer with local actors as if it was a real thing, and then was showing it around in Hollywood at meetups. And honestly, that's how it happened. Somebody saw it, and it took about a year after that before the guy called me and said, "Hey man, I think we've got something. Can you fly to Phoenix tomorrow?"
Right.
Which I did, and I don't even know how. I was probably broke, at the time. But I flew out there and flew back, had a meeting. They took me from the airport to the meeting. And then by the time we got back to the airport to get back on my plane, they were calling me and saying, "Hey, we're going to do this. It's going to be fun to work with you." So when you think about all the stuff that we went through to get it, and then the fact that we weren't able to share it with people was honestly heartbreaking.
It was sad. It was really sad because, like the number of people, all the locations we had in that. I mean, I was remembering all those big, beautiful houses we had,
Right.
The whole downtown of Dallas Center was involved. Remember, we had to meet with
brought
them,
in
the city
riggers
council.
and car crashes. And
do we show that scene more? I was wondering. Like, I saw it in the flashback.
You gotta watch it.
Man,
You gotta watch it.
It's a really good scene.
So I shared the first episode with you guys over the weekend.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know that you'd ever seen it. And Sean, if you had, it's probably been 5 or 6 years.
No, all I'd ever seen at that point was the trailer that you were talking about that you took to LA.
Okay.
Sean showed me that, and he was like, "Don't tell anybody." But this is really cool. You're gonna like it.
So you guys did get to watch it. So let's talk about that for a minute, because I'm in the process of kind of going through it again and cleaning it up a little bit and get it ready for our big premiere. But let's talk about that for a little bit.
I thought it looked great. I mean, I really did. I also saw our evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I'm like, we do things better now, which is cool, because I noticed a few sound things, I noticed some lighting things, but overall it's still I thought it was solid.
Yeah. I didn't notice any problems at all, really. I just like from the second I started watching it, it was engrossing. I was 100% in the story. You know how it is when you watch the first episode of what's going to be a series. You're trying to remember all the characters and get their relationships straight. So that's where my head was.
Sure.
I was trying to figure out, okay, so who's this guy again? And why is he pissed at this other guy? And why is he pounding his face or whatever?
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, a pilot is... Sometimes a pilot's the worst episode of the entire thing because the actors don't have chemistry yet. Maybe the story isn't really 100% fleshed out yet. And there's a lot of, you've got to learn the characters. It's like watching Game of Thrones for the first time, that first episode. I'm like, I don't think I can get through this. This makes no sense to me.
Right.
There's a lot going on in that.
I'm so glad I toughed it out. By the time I got to like the third or fourth episode, I was like, okay, we've got something here.
Yeah.
But totally. And that's one of the things, like I said, now that that we have the ability to kind of go in and pick a little bit. I'm definitely doing that, because when we end up premiering this, it's gonna, I would think it'd probably even be a couple minutes shorter than what you guys just watched, just to tighten it up a little bit and everything, you know.
Yeah, I can see that. The pacing was good. There were a couple of scenes that seemed like I felt like it could have been 2 episodes, maybe 3 episodes, but also like, what do you cut? Because you need to get to know all the people at least a little bit. You need a taste of everybody
Right.
up front.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you should cut, but it felt like I wanted a little more time to breathe here and there before I went straight into the next like super exciting action filled thing.
Right.
But I loved it. I loved it was wonderful. I got kind of like a little bit of like first episode of Succession vibes kind of thing going on, where there's like this super intense family drama, and it's really clear that there's this deep history between the characters, and you're just getting a taste of it. And they love each other, but they hate each other. You're getting pieces of that.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's definitely that dynamic. I know the thing that inspired me to write this, and it's kind of funny, but it's been a long time. It's been over 10 years, and my kids are all, almost all of them are all grown now. But at the time, I remember my daughter Lucy, and she was about 15. We were driving home from like pizza or something one night, and she goes, "Dad, how come you and your brothers and sisters are all gangsters?" And I was shocked to hear that. Amused. I thought it was hilarious, but I was like, what gives you that impression? Anyway, that discussion's not important. However, the thought of having a big family like I do, which I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and I'm from Humboldt County, California, where there's a huge industry of marijuana up there. So whether or not you're involved in it, it's part of everyday life up there.
Sure.
So I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if there was a family and that was their industry, and they ranged in age and attitude, and I was like, what would that be? And that's really how the idea for Burn was born. 6 siblings all going their own. It's like they're all a bunch of cats with their tails tied together, pulling on their own. They all have an agenda, and so
it's funny, but I still like, you really see it in Jack. I really like how you write family interaction, but it's right here in Burn too. I mean, all of this, it's stressful, but it's real family interaction. And I mean, I laugh a lot, at some of the stuff going on. Like at the end of the, one of the family meetings, we're talking about things, and Lance finally says, "Well, it's my way or the highway," basically, and everyone he's basically giving the finger to, but he stops at the youngest daughter and pats her on the cheek because he likes her.
Right.
So. He's his baby sister. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, there's that element.
Moment.
Yeah,
that was touching.
It was real. That's the thing. It was great.
So we had a very or a pretty famous cinematographer on that project at the time, Raphael Schmada, who taught cinematography in Paris and now teaches in Los Angeles and does documentaries and things like that. But that Burn was one of the first movies that I've worked on that had a cameraman other than myself, which was quite a learning experience too, because not only from a technical standpoint, you're learning, okay, that's a better frame than I may have chose, or I like the colors or the lighting that he chose. So that it was a very good learning experience. But on the flip side, what I also learned as a filmmaker is that having a team like that slows the project down in a huge way, which can be incredibly frustrating for someone who I would say I consider myself a guerrilla filmmaker. Just, get my shot, move on, let's go.
Yeah.
And to have to slow down at that pace and get used to that was very, very different. But it was a very gratifying experience, and I did learn a lot, like I said. So
Yeah, Raph was fun.
Yes, he like I said, he's a shorter man. He like maybe 5'4", 5'3", and a French accent. And he would scream, "Tor, Tor, come check this out,
Tor, Tor."
And he was always yelling at somebody. We had an actor, a male actor, he's not short by any means, but he's not a particularly tall person. But I remember he would go, "Hey, Tom Cruise, get your apple box."
Actually, when he was on set, he just started calling apple boxes a Tom Cruise.
Give me a Tom Cruise. Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, Raph was great.
Right. So, as you were saying, we had a lot of locations. We shot this in Iowa, which is where it's based on. In real life, Interstate 80, which goes from San Francisco to New York, and Interstate 35, which goes all the way up by Canada down to through Texas, cross right here in Des Moines, Iowa, which is interesting. And it's also been one of the biggest intersections of any interstate for drug busts, people that are smuggling mules that are taking drugs.
Oh, for sure.
And so the idea behind Burn is that by accident, this family, the Walsh family, uses the 8035 and owns that area because this is where their family is originally from.
Mm-hmm.
So using the 8035 and starting a trucking company where they say they're a furniture delivery company.
Sure.
They use their trucks to mule their stuff all over the country. So again, when their father dies, and they're trying to figure out what are we going to do now, the cartel begins to want to sniff around and they want to take over the 8035. So that main character, our main antagonist in Burn, is played by Lance Henriksen. So let's talk about him for a couple of minutes, because for those of you who don't know, when you're a small independent film company like we have, what we like to do is find actors that we love, but we want to bring them in for like a day or two because you can only afford them for a little bit. So what you have to do is cram all of their scenes into a very little window. And that's what we had to do with Lance. So, he had
like 2 days, or was it 3?
We had him for 1 day.
Just
and we had him in multiple locations in that day, and he was a trooper because we drug him all over town. We had, he went through his entire character arc in that 1 day, and then we shipped him back home.
Yeah, but we went out then that night too, so he really was a trooper.
That's true. That's true. Now we have got to work with him a couple of times because he's also one of the main characters in a movie that we did 2 years ago called When Jack Came Back, which you can now watch on Tubi for free. And it won awards all over the world. So it's a pretty cool movie about Alzheimer's. It's kind of a sad movie, but I think it'll make you laugh. And it definitely has a really sweet family dynamic to that too.
Yeah, it's great.
Very, very different from Burn. But working with Lance, I like Sean was saying, I think that's something that we want to talk about for a minute because he was such a cool guy. So
yeah, he was great, man. I mean, he was very relaxed. I remember all of us were a little nervous. We hadn't worked with anyone like that before. We didn't want to embarrass ourselves in front of him, and he had all these requirements that he had to have, that his agent said that he had to have, and everything was there. But he was just so relaxed, and he was funny. He just loved your writing. I remember him commenting on that a lot because this is a guy who doesn't pick a project because he has to.
Right.
I mean, he loves the work. And he works on what he likes, and he really likes Thor as a writer. He loved the story, he loved the part, and that was fun. That made us all feel really proud, Yeah. And I remember hanging out with him on set and talking about his pottery. He makes plates.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like I said, he did the bit where he was on the phone with me, and that was hilarious.
Well, he also did. He's a lot of fun and he's professional, but he's also very experimental. So if you're not used to that, it's a little bit, it's kind of challenging because you're like, what is he doing?
Yeah, he just goes off and like
But
improv.
he will say, he'll say, I'm finding it. We'll find it. We'll find it. And, you know, it was an interesting process to see somebody work like that because, you know, he did. He had to find it. He had to play with it and, you know, figure it out. You know, he came in and he knew the lines, but he wanted to do them a certain way. And he wanted to find a character that was interesting, which I'm grateful for that he took the time to do that. He also gave us a lot of shit. I mean, not in a bad way, but I remember him telling me, I don't know why he said this, but I remember him saying, Thor, you got to say action. And I'm like, I am saying action. I can play it back for you if you like, Lance. And you're like, oh, shut up. and I want to make sure that people that are watching this understand that he was just being fun.
Oh,
he
yeah.
wasn't being mean.
He was great.
And in the time that we've spent with him, the time that I've spent with him.
Well, that was the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's never done anything but be a sweetheart and a lot of fun. And, you know, Sean mentioned things that his agent said that he had to have, and most of that stuff he refused. And he was like, you know, he had the opportunity. We had a trailer for him. He didn't want to spend time in the trailer. He wanted to be out with us, watching us work.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was a wonderful, wonderful guy to be around. And, you know, I took him back to the airport, actually, the last time he was here. We talked the whole time. And you know, he loved to talk about his experiences in other movies and stuff like that.
That was fun. You could get him talking about, you know, hey,
Pumpkinhead.
tell me about what the Terminator was like, or whatever, and he'll start talking about the actors and how and little inside stories and things that went on. It was fun.
It was.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
I remember how excited you were when you first found out you were going to get to work with him.
Yeah, I was pretty excited.
You
I mean,
you were thrilled.
I mean, he's been in like every single science fiction movie you can think of, just about. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, yeah. I mean, you didn't have to tell me who he was. I knew, he's a real star.
He passed the Burger King test.
He definitely
Absolutely.
did. Yeah.
So,
well, then he hung out with us. Remember, we went out. He went to the hookah lounge that night.
Yep. Yeah. He was just a fun guy to be around, and you know, that's one thing. I've heard horror stories. You hear how wonderful Keanu Reeves is, and you know, you hear how bad other people can be or whatever, and you know, I feel personally very, very fortunate that the people that we've worked with that are well known have always been very sweet and very kind.
It's only some unknown person. It's like anytime I've been on set with an actor that's a complete annoying prima donna, they've never done anything else, or they've only done one thing.
Yeah, or you know, I mean, I've worked with a couple of actors that, I mean, they have a pretty decent body of work, you know, but they're just at that point where they're not quite famous, but they're probably either getting close or maybe they'll never quite make it. And there's that frustration that sets in, and they're like, why won't anybody treat me like I want to be treated? And so they get a little grumpy. And that can be difficult, but you know, fortunately, Lance is not that person.
No.
He just wants to visit, talk, goof around, laugh, and play at the casino. So.
Well, the scenes he's in, he's
incredible.
He's the star of every scene he's in. Clearly,
yeah, he's incredible.
Absolutely.
He's got a presence about him.
Yeah. Plus, he's just got that face. You know, he's got that kind of looks like he's been through some stuff. You know, but he's looked like that since he was 30 years old. You know, what's that famous old vampire movie where it's like the one that he's in with he's in it with what's the other guy from Aliens? Game Over, man. Anyway, they were in a vampire movie together.
What was that?
It's really good. Sometimes I forget names because I've seen so many movies, but anyway, he's like a young man in that, and he looks like he's 55.
Near dark.
Near
Near
Dark.
Dark,
Yes.
okay.
Have you
Yeah.
guys seen that?
I've not seen that one.
I don't know if you guys are into vampire,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it can be.
it's a it's kind of
Near
a cult
Dark, huh?
classic.
87,
Yeah.
Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen.
So I love Bill Paxton.
Yeah, he's great too. He was great too.
Near Death.
Near
I've never
Dark.
seen that
Near
one.
Dark.
Near
I don't
Dark.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yep. It's probably got to be late 80s or early
87.
90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Near
back
Dark.
to Burn. Before we veer off too much, we also had Raymond J. Barry in that movie.
We did.
So look him up real quick because I want to, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but there's, like, he was in Falling Down
Okay.
with
Yeah.
Michael Douglas.
Yep.
He was in that movie with Susan Sarandon and
Oh, yeah.
Sean Penn. What was that one called? He was like the father. I mean, he's just an incredibly awesome actor.
He's got, like 126 credits.
He sure does.
He's been in
Falling Down was really good.
Yeah, but there was a series. He was on something for a
He
long
was on
time.
Justified.
Justified. He was the
Justified.
main character's dad.
Yep.
And then he, more recently, he was on that in that Liev Schreiber show, the gangster show.
Ray Donovan.
Ray
was on
Donovan,
82
yes.
episode.
Yeah, Ray Donovan.
That's a
He was
good
in- He was
show.
in Dead Man Walking. Yeah.
Uh huh.
Yeah,
that
he's
was,
he's
that was
done.
one of my wife's favorite movies for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Justified.
So speaking of him, I went to pick him up at the airport, and he was shocked that the director was picking him up.
Hmm.
Actually, it wasn't the airport. I picked him up at his hotel. He came down, and another amazing.
Law and Order was the big one.
Oh yeah,
He was on Law and Order. Yeah,
huge.
195 episodes of Law and Order.
Really?
Yeah. Law and Order: Criminal Intent. He was
Huh.
on CSI: Crime Scene
He was
Investigation.
in the movie Out
300,
of Bounds
336 episodes of that.
with Anthony Michael Hall,
Out of Bounds.
which was a terrible movie.
Is that like a made-for-TV movie?
It can't, I mean, it should have been.
Is that the one where he went to California? And
It
he
was right after he became famous, and
Yeah.
he played some kind of a spy character, and it was. I just remember
Was it a
going
spy?
to it. I don't remember.
Or was it the one where he was like the small town guy who went to L.A. and he beat a bunch of people up? Some movie like
I
that.
don't.
I just remember thinking it was terrible.
I thought-
But I liked Anthony Michael
I
Hall.
liked it.
And
Talk about
he
it.
might have liked it.
That's a.
I'm sure he was good in it.
That's an actor too. That's awesome.
He
Honestly,
is.
I mean, he's kind of started doing movies
Anthony
again.
Michael Hall?
Yeah.
Oh, I
He's
love
great.
him. He's great.
He's
Yeah.
great.
Did you guys see him in the new Halloween movies, the
No.
remakes that just
Uh-uh.
came out? He's
Uh-uh.
one of the main characters in
Okay.
that. And
What did I just see him?
I mean, that's why I went to see that. I went to see that movie for him. Like, I was a fan.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
But
great.
just a bad movie.
I just remember thinking it was the first time I remember going to a movie that I was excited about and just thoroughly disappointed. But
Oh well, that's a bummer.
yeah,
Yeah.
What about did you guys? What was that? Valentine. It was a movie with Samuel L. Jackson, and he plays a homeless person that lives in a cave. Oh, that's what it's called, Caveman.
That's who.
Caveman
who's the-
Valentine.
Was it the
He-
pianist?
yes,
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
he's basically living in a cave in Central Park.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And his daughter is a police officer, and he's always trying to tell her about these crimes, and she thinks he's insane. And
Yeah.
to be fair,
He is.
he acts like he's insane, so you can understand why. But it's this crazy murder mystery that he kind of gets sucked into. It's great. The reason why I bring it up is because Michael Anthony Hall plays this super rich kind of elite guy
Sure.
that stumbles upon him and says, I'll tell you what, if you can do what you say you can, I will give you a new suit. And so he brings him up to his penthouse, and his wife's like, oh my God. And he's like, hello,
I
dear.
remember that.
It's great. Hello, dear. This is blah, blah, blah. He's going to play a song for us. And he sits down and he's just, tinkering. And you're like, oh, God, he doesn't know anything. And then all of a sudden he plays this beautiful
Yeah.
piece. But
Awesome.
it's a great, like murder mystery thriller.
All right, back to Burn. So Raymond Barry,
Raymond Barry.
the story that my favorite with him on set, because the scene in the background, my son's in the background. Connor's back there eating his onion rings and his chili dog.
Well, we got to tell them what the scene is. They meet at a greasy spoon cafe.
right.
And there's extras in the background pretending
right.
to eat. So now,
And we're in George's Chili King, which is iconic in Des Moines.
iconic in Des Moines,
And George
yeah.
is gone now, and it was great. It's that we used it a couple times in that film. And so, and it's famous. It was famous for its classic style chili dogs, right? Not a gourmet restaurant, but if you want a good chili dog, it was great. So we're in there, and he does his scene, and it's great, and that voice, and he's like, "Stick it up your ass, youngster," or something like that. His last line, and he's all, and we're all done, and Thor's like, "Oh, Miss Barry, you did great. Is there anything we could do for you? Do you want to go back? Are you ready? Need to go somewhere else? What can we do?" And he's like, "Well, I think could I have one of those chili dogs? They look really good."
he wanted a prop chili dog
and
that's been sitting on the counter for like 4 hours.
and George is like, "Oh, absolutely not. You can't have that. I'll make you a fresh one." "No, that one's fine." No. So they go back and they make him a fresh chili
Sure.
dog, right? And he sat there and he ate that whole thing. And when he was done, he was like, "Wow,
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I had a real chili dog."
That's
He
funny.
loved it. He loved it. Made him happy.
George's is the best.
They were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah.
He was really fun to work with too. Him and his wife were there.
Super
They were
easy.
really, really easy and fun, and they're giving everybody chili dogs for everybody.
Right. That's true. That's true. So we also talked about, so not only is Sean an actor, but he also helps me a lot behind the scenes. He's done a lot of production work. One of the things that he had to do for Burn was to find a town that would allow us to bring in a bunch of junked cars.
We want to look like a car.
We wanted to look like a massive car wreck. And so we had to find a town that was going to let us go into the middle of their town, and like on Main Street, knock cars over on their sides, have the fire department, the cops, and have them putting smoke and fire everywhere. And what you have to understand is, if you're a filmmaker in Hollywood, that's no big deal. You know that probably costs. You've got it in the budget. Something like that might cost $50,000, $100,000, maybe more, depending on what you have to do. Permits and all that stuff. But you have people that, 12, 15 people, maybe a whole team of people that will take care of that one situation, that one scene. But we film most of the time in Des Moines, Iowa. So if you tell people you're a filmmaker in Des Moines, Iowa, a lot of times they think that you're either creepy, or maybe you're into the adult industry. They don't
Not
think you're
legit
making
at all.
movies.
Yeah.
And the reason why I bring this up is because Sean was in charge of that entire scene, the development of that scene. And what I mean is finding the cars, finding the people that would bring the cars, getting the fire department and the police there, ambulances and all that stuff.
We had to flip the car on its side.
We had to use chains to get the cars over. So it's pretty. If you're a filmmaker and you're not in Hollywood, and maybe you never will, or maybe that's your goal and you're just not there yet, this is something that's very important to remember, is that if you have an idea, nothing is impossible. And it doesn't have to be digital. Everything doesn't have to be digital either. That's important too. Because if you can find somebody in a junkyard, which is essentially what we did, and not only did we find a junkyard that did that, but we also found a junkyard that let us shoot cars.
Yeah, we shot a car
with like a machine gun so we could film it and use it. We took another old truck and we had one of our actors cut out a section of it with a Sawzall so it could look like they were dropping bundles of illegal substances out of it that they had smuggled. I mean,
dude, we blew up a house in this.
We blew up a house.
We blew up a house.
We had a, what was that, a Ferrari? I mean, we
that car. Yeah, we had some nice cars.
We had really nice cars. We had mansions, and
we did. We had like at least 2, maybe 3 big. No, we had that really big mansion too that we haven't even seen yet.
Well, and here's another thing also, and this is kind of interesting. The budget for this all told is probably about $250,000, which I know sounds like a lot to smaller independent filmmakers, but in Hollywood standards, that might be, your food budget. Maybe part of your food budget. It's nothing. So, again, I know that sounds like a lot of money for an independent filmmaker, and for us it was too, But when you see how many things we accomplish with that amount of money, having named actors, brilliant named actors, having stunts and blowing up houses and things like that. I guess what I'm trying to impress upon you, if there are people that are watching this that are independent filmmakers, these things can be done, and it doesn't have to be millions of dollars to make these movies,
As long as you're awesome like we are.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got to hustle. You've got to, you've got to make phone calls. You got to get out there and do that. But you're probably already doing that if you're an indie filmmaker, unless you're not very good at it yet, But you've got to go out and do that stuff, make phone calls, trade work for favors and things like that. I mean, if you know how to edit a movie, you probably know how to use Photoshop, and then there's probably somebody that needs a poster that maybe you need to make a couple posters for a local bar, so they will in turn let you shoot a scene in there on a Saturday morning when they're hungover and mopping, which we've done that. So here at Everything True Cinema, we're not just talking about the good stuff. We're also talking about the crap you have to walk through in order to get your dream on screen, okay?
Well, this one, crap-wise, really you dealt with most of the crap because in the background. I remember that. You were constantly like on the phone with these guys arguing about stuff.
Well, the thing with these guys was, and again, it's very easy to fall into this, I don't want to call it a trap, but what it is you're so, you want to make your movie so bad. And this is very much me, obviously, but you want to make your movie so bad that sometimes when a deal is presented to you, you're willing to overlook a little thing here, a little thing there that might be a red flag, but you're like, yeah, but I can work around that if I can get this. Some might call that desperation, and it's probably true. You have to be very careful because this is an industry, as we all know, where people want to suck your blood. So, you have to be, you have to think about that. But what's really, when you're working with people like that and you don't realize it until sometimes it's too late, you run into situations. Now, in this movie, I'll give you a little bit of background here. The deal was that we were going to get a certain amount of money, and it was going to be broken up weekly over the schedule of the shoot. Now, we did 3 45-minute episodes, and we shot all of those in about 3 weeks, which is ridiculous. Usually if you're shooting a movie, for example, it's probably at least 6 weeks of shooting. So we didn't have enough time, so we were always on the move. But during those 3 weeks on Friday, we were supposed to get a check for the following week. And that check was to pay the actors, pay our crew, fly people in. We had people come from literally all over the country. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'd come in for 2 days' work or a day's work, and they'd go home. Mm-hmm. We always had to put these people somewhere to stay, feed them, whatever. And between takes, I was usually spending my time, or between setups, arguing with these financiers to get the money so that we could pay the people that are about to go get on an airplane and go home. And if you can, if you can understand how incredibly difficult that is, I know for a fact that one of the producers, Annette Duffy, who was, another person that was like my right-hand man during that project, was literally using her own money to pay these people until we got the money from these guys who were arguing. So, and we couldn't have done it without her. And I know there's a lot of actors, and this is important too. There's a lot of actors that wonder why they've never got to see this. And although I feel bad for them, sometimes there's things that you cannot discuss until you can. Right. So I really could never give
Right.
the answer they wanted to hear. It's just like, we're working on it.
Right.
And, that can be frustrating, and I don't blame them. There's a lot of people that wanted stuff for their reel and things. And quite honestly, a lot of people that made a huge effort,
Sure.
to be here, to
Sure.
do it. And they deserved better, but it was out of our hands until now. So that's another reason why I personally am so excited to get to show this finally.
Yeah, me too. I mean, this was a big project, biggest thing we'd ever done up to that point.
Absolutely.
And
everybody got paid.
everybody got paid.
So the money did come through.
Oh, yeah.
The money eventually,
everybody got paid. Yeah.
I remember having a conversation at one point where I was like, I don't really need anybody to like kiss my butt, but if you could just make it so I'm not stressed out while I'm doing this, it would really be helpful. Like if you guys could just be a little more supportive, because I've already got enough fires to put out when you're directing a project crammed into that short of amount of time.
And the thing is like I wasn't involved in that, and had I been, I would have wanted to yell at him, because it's like to me, why in the world would you want to interrupt the creative driving force behind what you're doing? You know what I mean? It's like your creativity, being able to be in the zone. We're getting ready to blow up a house, right? And we had the fire trucks were there. They had their popcorn. They were all ready. Remember, they were sitting there. They were ready to come in when it was done. And we got Macinich in there. Chris in there wiring the house, just sweating. I go in like, hey, how things going, Chris? He goes, this whole house is a bomb, right? I'm like, oh, I should get out. Yeah, you should get out. So I go out, right? But where's Thor? He's, instead of being able to look at the shot and talk about what's going on, he's pacing over on the phone with these guys, trying to make sure everybody gets paid. And it's like, you guys are spending money and you're literally interrupting the artist. It makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah, and it's a pretty substantial investment. Like, you'd think you'd want anything you need, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you think. It's like, even if you're mad, I'll yell at him after, right? You don't do it during the production.
Which I will say, too, that we did not go over budget on that project,
right?
Cool. Which is pretty cool. Yeah. That's not easy to do,
There's a lot of people. Do you remember how many actors even we had?
I mean, it's 50, 60 people were probably attached to the project. And then you have to remember, too, that it was a SAG project, which when you get the union involved, there's all kinds of extra,
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
SAG literally made Annette retire. I mean, that's how bad SAG can be. A union can choke you out, and they don't care. So, yeah, I mean, it's literally the reason why she's in Arizona 4 months. Yep. So
I just want to act.
Yep.
So does that mean you got a SAG director's credit?
Oh, yeah. Yep. So, it's been a long journey to get to this point. And that's, I'm sure that if TikTok people are watching this, they understand, or they're probably seeing the bombardment of all of the stuff we're putting up about this, but it's because we want people to be able to see it after all this time, and we want to make sure that all the people that were involved in it get to see it. So
I enjoyed it. I'll tell you, I watched it with my wife. She wants to see the next episode already. So
well, that's a good sign.
Yeah,
that's a good sign. So we're excited about that.
Yeah. Like I said, it was extra fun for me because, and you too, when you know everything that went into making every single one of those scenes,
Well, yeah,
so
that's one of the fun, interesting things about making movies too, especially if you haven't watched it for a while. Sometimes you don't realize when you're on set how much fun you're actually having. Sometimes you have to go back and look at a project and go, you know what, that was a really fun night. Yeah. At the time, I was probably, I might have not even been stressed, but just thinking about the stuff that I had to do to make sure that the night was productive. And so you look back, I mean, we did a movie this summer that was very, very challenging. And it was a very challenging experience. I'll leave it at that. But when I went back and was editing it, I could at least look at certain scenes and go, man, I remember laughing really hard about this, you know? And so, or special effects things that turned out better than you thought they did,
Sure.
or, you know, you get that kind of
We did some
feeling.
new bits this summer. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Yeah, I don't remember anything that stood out as a viewer as feeling clunky or weird or anything. Everything felt really great in that sense. So.
Well, that's good. I want people to enjoy this. You know, the whole reason that it came about is because I knew at that time, you know, like Breaking Bad was going to be ending soon, and
Right.
Sons of
Yeah.
Anarchy was like on their last season,
Right.
Yeah.
and obviously
Yeah.
Sopranos had been gone for a while.
Mm-hmm.
All shows that I really loved, and I was thinking, what would I want to see? You know, I mean, these shows are going to be gone. What am I going to watch?
Sure.
So the idea was always to do something that, you know, people that had that same feeling for those types of shows was going to be able to go, now we've got it again. You know, we've got something to watch again.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, it has that. I mean, it has that feel of it. And what I said about Succession being sort of a similar vibe, I think that's there, and that's the family drama. The family is also the business, and not everybody's on the same page about what that should be. Which
Absolutely.
creates, I mean, there's your source of conflict.
Right.
Me I grew up as an only child, but you had siblings and you've got a big family, so I think that felt a little more familiar to you. But it was fun to watch too.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, there's this scene, and I don't think I'm giving anything away, where the main character, Leo, is laying in bed with his wife, and you can tell they're winding down for the night. They're not asleep, but she's reading a book and he's watching TV, just trying to get the day out of his head. And she starts kind of, I don't want to say nagging, but you know, she kind of is. She's like, hey, we need to talk about it. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm tired. And she's like, well, I talked to you this morning, and you know, but
it's a good time to talk about it.
Should I make an appointment, or can we tough it out?
Exactly.
And I think we've all had those conversations with our spouse, and
Yeah.
you know, something that's like, is this really pressing, or can I please play with my PlayStation for a few minutes and relax? You know, so yeah, I mean, and I think that's critical to creating characters that feel real. If you can kind of empathize with them, or you can appreciate the BS they're going through in life.
I thought it was a really great scene, actually, because it revealed a lot about, like, this character that you've been with now at this point, maybe 20 minutes, right?
Right.
25 minutes. And you're kind of getting this whole, like, you know, a little bit of hard-nosed guy vibe.
Right.
But then his dynamics with his wife, in the start of that scene, you're not really sure what to expect. If he's going to, like, you know, be an asshole to her or get violent or what. But that it ends with laughter.
Right.
Well, she sure ain't afraid of him.
No.
She's not, no matter how tough he acts.
Right.
Right. And there's that fun. Like, he's still that guy, but he's
But
soft
not with her.
right?
Yeah.
And then later on, when that plot thread that you plant in that scene comes to fruition in a later scene, you see the dynamics of his nuclear family compared to the dynamics of the broader family.
Right.
And it feels almost like maybe later on, and I haven't seen the other episodes, so I don't know, but maybe he's got something to protect in his nuclear family from his broader family. So there's all these potential dynamics there. I'm a little sad you only got 3 episodes done. Like, I want to see
You know
where this goes
what's
with
fun
episode
about
22.
this? I love talking about this, though, because if anybody's seen this, it's because they are attached in some way.
Right.
So hearing it from a viewer's point of view,
Right.
with no real idea of what the story was about until you started to watch it, is fun to hear what you're thinking. And I'm sitting here going, well, that worked. That's good. That's good.
Well, and I'm also only 1 episode in,
Right.
so I don't know where we're going next. But I mean,
It's a ride.
I'm here for the ride. Yeah. Like, and this was my comment to Sean. I was like, I wanted to know, did Thor mean for this to be an 8 or 9 episode, like, HBO series, or a 22 episode CBS series?
Well, here's the thing. That's a great question, because the idea was that we wanted to be able to, ultimately what we thought the show would be was 6 episodes.
Okay.
Kind of like Peaky Blinders,
Okay.
right? but we knew that we had these 3 episodes that we were allowed to do and we had the money for. So we wanted to make sure that we wrote it in a way that by the end of the 3rd episode, you felt like, okay, we've got closure.
Yeah.
We had the problem. We knew what they were going to go through. Is there a cliffhanger? Maybe. Probably. But you still got the
Could have
payoff.
been spread out in 6 episodes.
That's good to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, yes, I know where that story's going, and I know it gets crazier, and you know, we may end up, who knows what will happen once it actually gets out there and people can see it. But the main thing is right now is that we know that if you watch the 3 episodes, that you're going to be able to have closure at the end of that and feel like, okay, I'm not sitting here putting all this effort into something that I'll never get.
Right.
And that's a terrible feeling, like when Netflix cancels your favorite show after one
and
season.
they do that last shitty episode.
Yep.
Or even worse, they don't do that last one shitty episode.
Yeah, you just walk away and
you've got all these plot threads and they're waiting in the air for that.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
I think that's
It's
part
the
of the
worst
reason
feeling.
why people, a lot of shows, or a lot of people nowadays, because that's an option, is they wait until there's 3 or 4 seasons before they even try to get invested in things.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they don't realize that these networks are playing with our hearts. You know, we love these characters.
So many series, you get to the last couple episodes, and you're like, what?
Oh, I hate that
What
song.
happened?
There was
Well,
one-
you know?
There was one I just watched a couple weeks ago, Louder Milk.
Yeah.
Okay,
We were talking
yes,
about
yes,
that,
yes.
Yeah. And the reason I actually, because it was trending on Netflix or whatever. I was like, all right, whatever. I like the lead. He was the guy from Office Space. But that they already did 3 seasons of it on, like, I don't know, Verizon or AT&T had some short-lived, channel.
Right.
And it was their flagship show.
Right.
So they had that put together, and you can tell that it had the production budget of a very small network, but probably still, maybe $1 million an episode, right?
Right.
So, but that I got to see a plot all the way through to the end. I knew they would get there with 3 seasons. Yeah, so I don't want to invest in something where I know I'm going to get disappointed.
Right.
So it's awesome that you had that thought ahead of time, and that you do have some conclusion.
Right. Oh yeah, I don't want to hurt people. You know what I mean? I'm a fan too. You know. So, remember Verizon? They did like a series here.
Yeah.
Back in like 20, it was like a football high school
They
movie.
did. They did too.
Our friend Chad was a PA on that.
I was involved in both of them.
Yeah.
I don't even want to remember that production.
Yeah, I don't know that I ever saw it. I
never did
I think
either.
that's how we met
they never,
Corey,
as far as I
actually.
know, marketed it in any way, which is amazing. If it's Verizon, why wouldn't it just be marketed on your phone all the time?
No, I know. It
Click here to watch
the audience
stuff.
network from AT&T. I mean, all these experiments at trying to figure out where the industry was going.
Right.
How they've all folded.
What time do you have?
8:20 or 8:56. 8:50. So we've been going about an hour.
All right. Well, I think that's good. What do you guys think?
I feel good.
All right.
Oh.